Welcome back to Practical Parenting, the podcast that helps empower parents in the trenches, find joy in the process, and thrive through it all. I'm Christina Wales, here with my co-host, Dr. Terry Nguyen, Chair of Pediatrics at GBMC Healthcare. So in our last episode, we talked about co-parenting after divorce, and I think there was one question that stuck in my mind after we wrapped up, and you talked a little bit about the importance of consistency and routines, especially when kids are going between two houses. So how do you navigate it when the rules are different between one house and the other? Say you can watch more TV at dad's house and the rules are different at mom's house. And, so there's helping the kids navigate the different rules, but also you're going to inevitably get that pushback where they say, oh, I'm allowed to do that at dad's house. Why can't I do it here? And sort of, I'm sure there's a lot of feelings for guilt that parents have about the fact that they're not, maybe things are seem much more fun at dad's house than they do at your house or whatever. And I'm not doing whatever with dads. I just happen to be a mom, so.
Okay, got it. That is a common challenge that many of my families have, actually.
Okay.
Here's the thing. It would be great if you could, establish at the very beginning, major important decisions that really require both parents to be involved and agree upon. So anything having to do with medical issues, education, overall wellness, right? And that overall wellness includes, bedtime, what we're eating, not specific eating, but, just the general. So if you can set that up ahead of time so that you are both in agreement, that would be great. There's that parenting plan that we had discussed. Set it up from the beginning. But then, inevitably, it's not going to be followed. And for some reason, one of the parents needs to give a dig to the other parent and is much less restrictive than the other parent. And, it does mess up the children, right? Because they come back from a weekend at one parent's house that, they're young and they can stay up until 11 or 12, where at the other household, okay, you can stay up an extra hour. That means 10 o'clock, not 11 or 12. And the children can use that to weaponize against each of you. So when you're at that impasse, get a third party involved, okay? It can be a legally appointed mediator or a parent mediator, parent
like therapist or coach or something?
It's a mediator, parent coordinator. That's the word I was looking for. Or I also tell some of my parents, because there's usually inevitably one parent that often continues to come to the appointments, but I encourage both parents. So if they can't stand to be in each other's presence, please don't bring both of them in, but maybe one of them can be in person and the other parent can be virtual. But it's really important for them to hear, both sides, to hear consistency. We respect that you may have, fine-tuned different styles, but basically the things that are going to set your children up for success is the routine and the consistency as much as possible from household to household, okay? And when you hear it from somebody else and it's not your ex, it's just digested and processed much easier. So hopefully your pediatrician or your family practitioner is open for that role, because I know that I do a lot of that. So I've had families where divorced parents, they both come for the annual physicals. And then I've had other ones where one parent comes physically and the other parent is on the phone or is on FaceTime, okay? And it's just so that I can help take the heat, okay? And I'll talk about, the need for regular, consistent, routine schedules for children, how important it is. And I can play both scenarios, because I'll bring up this difference in sleep. If, you're 3 hours off, 2 to 3 hours off from where you normally sleep on the weekdays, imagine Sunday night is a nightmare. That's like saying you flew out to California, because we're on the East Coast here. You flew out to California for the weekend, and now you're back, on Sunday night, and you have to make that 3-hour transition. remember how that even that small 1 hour transition was such a drag? Well, 2 to 3 hours difference just in 2 or 3 days time is, a behemoth for children, right? Whether they're young or they're older. So, that way it's rather neutral. It comes from a neutral person. I mean, I'm just advocating for the kid here, and I'm not your ex.
Mm-hmm.
So, have your pediatrician or family practitioner involved in that when you're talking about consistency, so both parents can hear the same message, because it doesn't work well when one parent has to say, well, the pediatrician said this is what we should do, because that other parent, the other partner, is hearing something very different. Okay, oh, you're saying that and you're putting it on the doctor, So yeah.
What are like the top issues that you hear?
It's bedtime. It's bedtime. It's electronic use. Okay, curfews, and junk food. Like, one parent may not cook as much, so they're always going out, and sometimes there's a lot of fast food involved in that, and that's a little bit dicier. Another good reason to, come back to your pediatrician to have that talk, right? The sleep thing we already talked about. Electronics. Oh, yeah. There are some parents who that's like their go-to babysitter, and like, did you spend any time with your parent this weekend that you were with?
Right.
They were playing video games 8 out of 24 hours, Those are the big points of conflict. And I would just, again, get help from a third party, okay? You don't want to put yourself in the wearing the hat of the enforcer, because you can't enforce what's going on in the other house. And your children are really smart. They're going to use it. They're going to weaponize it between the two of you, right? And then nobody's getting along. No one's agreeing, right? And everybody's pretty miserable. And your child is actually the one that suffers. Remember, the focus here is your child.
Right.
So for the parent who may be a little bit more lax in their parenting style, sure, great that you let them have more treats and stay up later. But maybe you're not the parent who has to drag them out of bed on Monday morning, right?
I love the idea of creating the parenting plan, whether you do it ahead of time or even if you're in this situation, you need sort of like a reset, or even involving your kid in the conversation. Like, what do you think would be good rule setting so that you all agree on what, especially, I'm thinking more for older kids, who, if you would develop a screen time plan with them anyways, so involving the other parent, then it's like a team. So, obviously, the things you just mentioned are probably good things to include. So bedtime, screen time rules, nutrition, anything else that you think are really important to have in a parenting plan?
Curfews.
The curfews, okay.
The curfews, parties, alcohol and substance use. There are some households where there's no curfew with one parent, and there's a curfew with the other parent. That just automatically sets up conflict. So
what about like other friend stuff? Like, are they allowed to go to this friend's house or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. Sleepovers, which I call sickovers. And then what you might know, what's that? Every time when my kids were younger, if they went to a sleepover, they'd be sick in 24 to 48 hours because they didn't sleep. Okay? I mean, everybody was just enraptured with how late they could stay up. So you don't get enough sleep. Your immune system is a little under the weather. You hit it with a germ and you're sick, right?
You mentioned medical stuff too, now that you're sick. You should agree on
medical treatment.
Okay.
Anything having to do, if you have a child with a chronic disease, when we talked about doubling up things, I'd be like, well, then have a nebulizer machine if your child has asthma at both houses. Don't make them lug that darn nebulizer machine from home to home. Or if you have a child that's a diabetic, right? Have the same stuff medically from home to home, okay? Don't make them lug all that.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And and then we have to put ourselves in our kids' shoes sometimes. Like, how would you like it to be 8 and like bringing the suitcase from this place to the other place on a regular basis?
Right.
Okay. Like, we all think it's already a drag if we have to do it for work. I know there are people who do it for work like every week, but for the rest of us, we're like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Your child who's so much younger really feels, okay.
Yeah.
And then, it's about when I say curfews and the friendship things, that's important. That's just, I'm going to take it out of the co-parenting section and say, usually we try to, when our children are entering adolescence, we try to be in contact with other parents in the same friend group so that we are setting up similar expectations. I remember doing this for my kids when they were in middle school. We all agree there's no drinking in middle school at any of our houses. Yep. And we all agree that, parties end at 11, So think of it in that term when you're co-parenting as well. And how did you get to that negotiation place with a group of parents? Well, now you're going to do it with your business partner, your ex.
I actually feel like some parents who are married would benefit from having a parenting plan and agreeing on how they're approaching stuff before they have a baby.
Yeah, but who thinks that far ahead?
I mean, I don't think many people, but I mean, it's important to know where you're coming from with each of these things.
I mean, I think it's an important discussion to have regardless. I mean, I know a lot of parents who do live together and who, they get along, but they do not get along about parenting their children, and they're partnered. Okay, so imagine if you don't agree on that and you're not partnered. I mean, that's going to be catastrophic.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some of these tips have helped people navigate co-parenting and when the other parent disagrees or whatever with your methods. So, So
my wrap up is, listen. Even if you don't agree with the other person, just by listening and not interjecting is going to help your ex feel heard, okay, and that their opinion is respected and they have a say in it. Okay, I'm talking about people who are being reasonable here, okay? And then, pause and go, okay, in the big picture, are these the top three of how they're going to really affect our child? And if it's a little thing, like the ex wants another half an hour, be cool about it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to change your world, rock your world. Have some perspective. At the end of the day, did that really matter? Don't just go for the absolute answer is always no when they're asking for something. And then in return, like if you'd like to ask for something, ask nicely. Come on, you get a lot further with honey, than you do with
vinegar.
Yeah, vinegar. So keep perspective, stay calm. And put on your best negotiator hat, okay? Be a business person in this relationship. Sometimes that's what we need to be reminded of. And then know that, you both share a common goal here.
Right.
Which is what's the best for your child. So, when you think the other person's going off some deep end and you're like, what? Remind yourself, your ex does want the best for your child also. Yeah. They may just have a difference of opinion on how to get there. Yeah. But don't assume that they're just doing it to you. And then same for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All good
luck.
tips. Thanks. See you in the next one.